Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life West, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Life by Life West. Our Life by Life West series are just picking up so much steam, and they're just awesome. We're getting graduates, docs who are out from 0 to 10, 15 years, sharing their successes, and they're geared toward everybody, but especially toward our students and toward anyone in practice, 0 to 15 years. So, that's what we're about, and we're doing some wonderful things. I've got a really phenomenal guest with us tonight, and also a good friend, and we're transmitting tonight all the way to Hong Kong, and I have Alvin Hsu, Dr. Alvin Hsu with us tonight. Welcome to the show, Alvin.
Thank you, Ron. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. And just for our group to know this, Dr. Alvin graduated in 2011. He's been out for 10 years, originally born in Canada. He's a proud Canadian. And
that's right.
A very interesting story on getting to Hong Kong, which we're going to get into, and really just pick up some really great gems from how Dr. Alvin has built one of the biggest practices in Hong Kong. So, hey, Doc. It is good to see you, and we're always communicating back and forth about things happening in Hong Kong, but it's just nice to see you because we usually email each other. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely, and I don't want to let this, not say this that Dr. Alvin belongs to the Delta Sigma Chi fraternity, and he's very strong in it, and so he's been strong since school. But let's go into it. So you have 2 kids, I know, and your wife. I believe your family right now is living in Taiwan, right? Not in Hong Kong.
Yeah, they're in Taiwan, not in Hong Kong. And so 1.5 hours and 14 days away.
Exactly. I know, Hong Kong, besides, Corona, it has gone through so many things these last 2 years, we should say, with the demonstrations that happened and all the things that were going on in there. But, you still persevered, grew your practice, and have been doing amazing things, right?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Even with the protests, even with the whole coronavirus, practice has been booming. People want to do something, and they're realizing, wait, chiropractic can really help me in a way they never imagined. They're looking for something, right? So.
Yeah. And, I got to say this, Doc, because, you moved to Hong Kong, you're Canadian, we could talk about how you got into chiropractic in a second, but you went there, didn't know anybody. And you grew this amazing practice. So it's got to be somewhere around, you engaged your community, right? You engaged the population of Hong Kong. And for those people who don't know much about Hong Kong is probably square miles larger above ground than it is wide, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
sure. And so let's talk about engaging the community. What did you do, and how do you do it, and what, all the successes and trials and tribulations?
So when I first got to Hong Kong, I just got around pretty much, however you want to take that, right? But I went volunteering and played sports. I went networking, met people, and they're always interested, what is chiropractic? And I gave them the general story about spine, nervous system, but it was never pushing. I'm like, you should go get checked. And I was always like, where do you live? Where do you work? It's the spine and nervous system is so important. You need to go get checked wherever you are. And I never made it about them coming to see me. And I always let them know, this is so important for everyone. It's just imagine if no one knew how to brush their teeth. Everyone should go. And I got excited about that. And then for practice building, it wasn't like people came in right away. So that was kind of disappointing at first. But then I stick true to, my plan, my mission, my principles, and just didn't want to bait them in for a quick fix or something like that. So it was hard at first, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, you put your time in. But I love what you said, because you said something really key, that you were more genuinely interested in them getting under care than getting under care necessarily in your office.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes, because people feel that. And they really, they see that it's not about you, it's about them, right?
Yeah. I think it's important that we really communicate that to them, and not just to them, it's not about their care, it's about the people around them too. Because I asked them, where do they live? And then, who they know that, because they always ask questions about their family members or friends, right? And I asked them, this is so important, because a lot of people are suffering without realizing it. And in Hong Kong, like most of them don't even know how many chiropractors there's like 300 for a population of about 7 million, right? In a very densely packed area, right? So like there's chiropractors all around them that they probably didn't even realize, but just keeping them on the understanding that this is for everyone. And it's hard for them to understand at first, which is why I kind of essentially have to slow play. I'm like, when you're ready for more, let me know. I'm always here for you. So that's kind of the angle I took. And it probably took about 2 years for me to learn how to be super effective in that manner. But at the 2-year mark, when I switched practices, I just started getting referrals in from everywhere that I've been building my network. So,
and that's a good lesson for any practitioner, but especially if someone's starting out, it's all about, laying the groundwork, right? You got to lay the soil, you got to till the soil, you got to nurture the soil. And it's like, well, I don't got a lot coming up yet. It's okay. It's going to come as long as you put your work in. And that's what you did, right? I mean, let's face it, in Hong Kong, someone's going to be close to you. 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 people are going to be close to you, right? Because it's a very small mileage, square miles, but people are living, up high, that kind of thing, and they can all make it to you, but you really just cared about them, which I so love. So you grew this, you started getting into your own, and things started happening. And how did you get out in the community besides like what are you doing now in your community? You're in practice for 10 years.
In my community now, a lot of talks, a lot of different NGOs, schools, different corporations. So our practice members know that we do talks. We used to host them in-house here. We have an open clinic with 3 tables, and then we just push them all to the side. Our dividers just slide away. Our dividers are see-through. So people feel like it's nice and open. We just happen to have like a unit where it's L-shaped, where all that is all windows on one side, and it feels very open, which is rare for Hong Kong. But then I always talk about it. I'm going here to do a talk. I did a talk here. And they're like, can you do a talk for us? And this and that. I'm like, or do you want me to do a workshop for you? Or want me to host them? And they're like, oh, wow. Like they think about getting engaged and not just bringing in people to get checked, but like, where can I host a talk for my community and bring Alvin along type thing, right? So they get excited about it. They're part of the process of engaging the community. So I enroll them in that quite early,
Which is awesome. You left Canada, you came to the States, right? And, you got in the chiropractic. Your sister's a chiropractor, correct?
Sister and brother-in-law, yeah.
Right. And I know your sister gave you a tip. You told me this a long time ago, right? What did she say to you when you were going to go to school?
So when I told her I wanted to become a chiropractor, she said, "Oh, I want a piece of advice for you." She's like, "Go find a chiropractic college with philosophy." Essentially what she said. She's like, I don't know where. At that point, Jerry Clum was our president at Life West, and he's like, he seems like he knows what he's doing. He's speaking on these circuits. So we went to a lot of master circles, conferences and super conferences back then. So I heard him speak, and then it was kind of like, oh, like this philosophy. And I guess I grew up in those circuits as well. My chiropractic philosophy and understanding grew there, and seeing it in practice as well. So that's kind of the big advice. I'm like, get the philosophy and then the science and art. And I actually told her, I'm like, if the philosophy's like, why can't I just get the philosophy from you? And she's like, no, that doesn't work that way. She's like, my foundation's laid a little bit differently, and could I do it again? I do it differently, but she's walked her path, right? So that kind of like left me with a big question mark. I'm like, go find the philosophy. I'm like, so. But yeah, I was lucky. I met Jerry Clum then. I asked him the questions about where to go. He gave me the question. The answer was, wherever you go, be great and amazing at it, and never underestimate the power of an adjustment, right? I read some articles of him talking about Life West, and he was very genuine, and he was funny about it. He wasn't like, come here. It's just like, so I just decided I'm going to go for it, right? So.
Well, you couldn't have had a better mentor. I mean, besides your sister and brother-in-law. But it's really interesting because, Jerry is just such a phenomenal, not just chiropractor, but person, and he is. He really deeply cares about people. He's committed to lasting purpose. But the interesting thing is that when you think about it and you talk about, it's so easy to take the path of least resistance, isn't it? It would have been so easy for you to go to any school that was conveniently located to you instead of having to go search out and find that school. And obviously you found Life West, and that happened to be the right school for you. But I hear this a lot with chiro kids. They say, I'm just going to stay home. My parents will teach me, or I'll go wherever, and they're just not the same. It's just not the same. So when you got out, your sister and brother-in-law are practicing still in the States. Is that correct?
Yeah, up in Bellingham.
Bellingham?
Washington, yeah. So.
Yep. And then here you are, you get out and, you kind of felt your way around for whatever period of time, whether it was 18 months or 2 years, then you decided you were going to go to Hong Kong. What was it that that innately inspired you to go to Hong Kong?
I think it's because I could speak the language. And then I came to realize there's only 300 chiropractors here and most people speak Cantonese, right? So at first I was scared. I told people I could probably go anywhere in the world except Hong Kong because I just felt awkward there. But I thought my language was, a weakness, so I wasn't good at it. I was afraid, but then I realized it was a strength. Whereas I could speak it, I could connect to it, I could grow it. Whereas other people, they have to learn it from the start. And it's funny, people think it's cute. Oh, this guy speaks kind of broken Cantonese, and but they see and feel and hear our passion for helping them. Right? So that language is a huge thing. So
yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, just give me this idea. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being so little that it's not even really just kind of crept up there, and 10 being fluently, proficient that people would never have known that you grew up in Canada, went to the school in the States. Where were you when you got to Hong Kong with Cantonese?
When I got to here, I was probably a 5.5.
So,
I could understand most things. I just wasn't very fluent, very conversational. I was conversational, but it just wasn't smooth. Right? It's kind of broken English, and we can have a full conversation, but it was we take our time and wait for me to finish saying things.
And would they say?
And then you'd have to translate. Okay, Alvin means this. They would always say, I guess you could say it that way.
Would they say to you, where are you from? Are you from Canada? Are you from the States? Would they pick up that accent?
No, they just know I'm from abroad, right?
Yeah.
And they say your Cantonese isn't bad, but right. So it's yeah.
And yet, boom! Now you're what? Would you say you're a 9.5 or a 10 right now?
No, I'd probably say I'm just a 7.5. But my vocabulary is not high, but I'm very comfortable speaking it. I can speak it more colloquially. So they feel like I'm one of them. But then they're like, wait a minute, are you you aren't from Hong Kong, are you? Right? So they have to take a double take, and they're like, wait a minute, I just realized something. You said something that Hong Kong people don't say. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Canada. I'm like, whoa, well, the Cantonese is actually pretty good. I was like, I was born there, So, but you got to be willing to engage. That's the thing about the communities. That's about when pre-chiropractic students, they get born in your practice. We got to be willing to engage them. I think that's one thing that I learned from you guys. You just let's try, let's go. Talk the story and keep going forward. And you don't know what will happen. So I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But the reason why I brought up the 0, 1 to 9, 1 to 10, kind of thing, is it wasn't so that people would see where you're at. It's that when people graduate, they might be proficient in speaking chiropractic 5.5, right? Think about it. A new graduate goes out, they don't know what to say, and they don't know everything to do, and they might not feel as efficient, right, or proficient in speaking to, whether your English is your major language and you're talking to someone, you're in the States, right? So you're speaking the same language, but the conversation around chiropractic, and it doesn't matter, right? I mean, sure, you're going to get more proficient as you go, but you can't use it as a barrier, is what I'm hearing you say, because even at a 5.5, people still want to know what you have to say, right?
For sure. I think when you graduate, we feel like we speak at a 7 or 8 in chiropractic, but they receive it as a 3 or a 4. So tuning how to make our content, more contextual, right? Make it so that they can receive it. That's huge, right? And being able to say it in many different ways. If I don't feel they're understanding it, okay, how about this analogy? How about, hardware, software? How about, circuit boards? How about, for us, it's MTR, traffic flow. That's the BART station, right? When a station gets bogged down, boom, everyone floods out to the buses, and boom, we've got a traffic jam. And the whole city is just everyone's waiting 2 hours to get to work. And they're like, yeah, I've done that. I feel that.
Yeah,
so making sure we can find ways to relate, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just hit me too, man. What a great analogy, Doc. Gridlock. It's your body goes into gridlock, right? When you have subluxation, communication, when it's not flowing right. And when you have gridlock, you have chaos. And when you have chaos, things aren't going anywhere. It's so cool. I never even thought about it like that. So just hearing you say that, there's got to be, I want to jump into this because there's got to be something, you get there, you go to Hong Kong, you don't know a soul, maybe a few people, but not really anybody. You go out and start, meeting people with sports and different hobbies and things, and you're building this practice. And Lord knows that people need to know that, you can have rent in Hong Kong. I'm sorry, you can have rent in New York City. You can have rent in San Francisco. You can have rent in all these places. They have no idea what rent is like in Hong Kong, right? I mean, it's one of the most expensive cities in the world. I mean, it's incredibly expensive. And yet you go out, you step out, you take a space, right? And it really, when I boil it down, someone like yourself going out and doing this, not knowing anyone, and just, and a 5.5 in your language as far as what you think, it takes leadership. Let's face it, there's a lot of leadership skills that happen there. So if I want to throw that at you and just kind of share with some of the leadership skills that you went through and what you did around that.
So I really quite like strengths finders. There's a strengths pattern, strengths themes. So I just kind of analyzed stuff like that and just thought about which ones I'm good at, which ones should I become better at. And that just helped me get a bigger picture of, where I could grow and how I could grow. And then one of the factors that I quite like, the themes is like, there's a theme called Woo, WOO, which is like pretty much winning people over, being attractable, being engaging, right? And I felt like that, led me to really just love engaging people. I'm like, if I can engage them, get them excited about themselves, and then tie it to chiropractic later, it's a sure win, and it's for their benefit. So I'm not trying to do anything sleazy or salesy, and they get excited more about their own life, being someone resourceful to them, connecting them. That's kind of just like what I want to try to grow them. All right. So I guess the leadership mindset I've taken, is growing others. If I can grow others, I'm growing myself. And if I can learn to grow others in different ways, then I'm definitely growing myself in more dimensions than I even realize. So sometimes a lot of people ask me, like, what do you get out of this by helping me? I'm like, I'm getting the experience of training you, with the experience of getting to know a different profession. And then, there's another speaker in one of Lawrence Tam's sessions. He just said, just keep giving. And when the time is right, you feel very comfortable asking, and they will give back way more than you can even imagine, right? But just be someone that gives really for the sake of giving, and that ties right into lasting purpose. So, so that's kind of been what I think I want to grow other chiropractors to have as well.
Right. And that's what leadership's about, right? Leadership is about, caring more about those you're leading than your own agenda, and really looking to have other people grow around you. That's the best leader, right? They care so much. The leaders care so much about the people that they're working with. We'll talk about Woo.
So Woo is like your attractability, like when you go into the room, are you someone that do people feel like they want to come up to you? What you do is engaging, exciting, so it's just that whole attraction factor, but not necessarily as like, partner to partner type thing, but just like person to person, so it's just like, that's kind of what I found I had a little bit of. And I felt like I just kept developing that because I just want, like, how do I get you to talk to me? Not for any, like materialistic purposes, but, breaking down the barriers, breaking the ice, that kind of thing. How do I make it easier for you to break your ice? My ice is broken, but I don't want to like have to melt yours. Let them, so just all those framing things to make everything easier wherever you want to go. That's probably something that someone who has strong Woo has as well, right? So you make it easy for everything else to happen, show them the steps, stuff like that. I think that's what people like too. And they're like, okay, I'd love to engage with you because it's very comfortable, you're not just in my face about everything all the time. You're like, so that's kind of one of the, like how I've grown my Woo essentially.
Yeah. So if I'm a new doc, or I'm a doc who's looking to change my practice, right? And I realize that I need to grow my Woo, right? And tell me 3 things that if you were to coach me, what would be 3 things that you could tell me possibly that might help me grow my Woo? I'm not saying it would, but possibly help me grow my Woo.
Okay. I'd probably say, you need to know what you love, right? When people see you authentically communicate about something, then they'll at least know that you're good on that. And then, you're not like pulling a fast one over them or something like that, right? So if you know what you love, then learn how to share that, right? And be open, right? So if you have something you love and you're willing to share, then people are willing to engage you, right? So that's the two to think of. If you think for a third one is really try to think from their perspective, and then more of this, like, it's all about being adaptable, right? Think from their perspective. If you're not getting it, then switch it, right? If they're not getting it, tune it, right? Because it's not like they don't want it, right? We don't just take one shot and assume that, we missed, we're never going to get it. It's like, okay, let's take another shot, or let's move by steps, just aim different, right? Well, let's have them guide us, right? So that's probably the other part, just taking it from their perspective and then being adaptable to it. So
yeah, I love it. And that's what draws people in, right? Because we care so much about them, right? And having them get the communication. I know there's, I always tell people at the college here, there's three factors in communication. One is what you said, two is what you think you said, and three is what they hear. Right. And that's on the verbal and hearing level. But I love what you're talking about, too, because it's really also about how do they feel? Because if they feel heard, if they feel like that the person like yourself is generally interested in them, like you said, you don't want to melt their glass. You want to just, you just want to have them just kind of separate it, right, and have it move through.
Yeah. Well, however they want to, right? Some people want it separated. Some people like, give me a hammer. I'm ready to do it now. It's like you just got to read them, right?
Yeah.
And then give them tools, teach them how to use them. Maybe they want to keep the glass but just have a window so they can pop out. We just got to respect their thing, but show them the possibilities. I think that's the same thing with the chiropractic, right? We got to show them the possibilities. Yeah, you can come in for pain-based care for sure, right? But you're missing out on the whole thing, right?
But you don't make them feel bad about it. It's like we wait for them to next time.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a process, right? It's a process.
That's the key thing. We got to tell them it's a process, and you're probably going to be right here. And I was there too. I like to use that. I was there too. I side with them, oh yeah, chiropractic is about chiropractic. Yeah. I used to think that too, and then, so the whole yes and, right. And then I realized, and I studied it, and then they haven't studied it. So obviously they can't refute that, but then they're like, wait, okay, that does make sense.
And, Alvin, it's interesting, Doc, because here you are in a huge city, millions and millions of people, 300 chiropractors, which is really nothing. You start thinking about, most people who come to you have no idea about chiropractic, like none, and they're used to going to doctors. But the cool thing, at least in Asia, is that, there is an interest in taking care of themselves. Acupuncture is like one of the oldest professions in the world, right? And so they understand about the vital force or the chi or the innate intelligence, right? That's within us, right? But it's still getting them to understand a new way. And that's the huge hurdle, right? I mean, I
think it's about connecting them back to the old way in some sense too. You know how we always talk about correct the cause, not the effects, right? There's actually a very similar Chinese phrase. It's called 疾病,疾不, which is like, oh, you're just treating symptoms, right? And then saying you're not addressing the cause. And it's because of that. I had an optometrist friend tell me that in the Bay Area. I was driving on the San Mateo Bridge. I remember, and she said that. I'm like, what does that mean? And then she explained, I'm like, oh, that's what chiropractors are saying. Like, do Hong Kong people know that? She's like, all Chinese people know that phrase, right? So that actually gave me the courage to come over to Hong Kong, knowing that my Cantonese wasn't that great. Because I can always just pull that out and they would just get it, right? They're like, everyone knows it. Like, you probably know it in like 5th grade type thing. So
yeah. But then showing them a different way, right? Because obviously they have no idea what correcting the subluxation looks like, what an adjustment looks like. It's just amazing, but yet it's universal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great. Listen, the last thing I want to ask you is this, and we're kind of running short on time, but I do want to know, because Alvin, Doc, I just want our viewers to know you're always talking chiropractic. You're always sending students, to chiropractic school. We got people coming from Hong Kong, from China, and your whole mission is about building chiropractic. And I know that, and now our viewers should know that. But what I want to ask you is like where you see the future of chiropractic in Asia, because you're invested in Asia, your family's there. all the things that you're doing. You're always at the States. You always come over here. You're always, you come to the Wave, and you're at least here like
when I can.
Non-pandemic, you're here once or twice a year. I see you at the college. Tell us about it. Like, where do you see the future of chiropractic in Asia?
So right now in Asia, I think Malaysia is booming huge. There's a college there, but then China is kind of like no one knows how to go in there. So we've got a few Life West grads in there. Craig's up there, Sam's over there with a bunch of Life West grads too. But the geography is just so wide there. So it's hard to know how to get in. But I think it's changing a lot. Even in Hong Kong, with only 300 chiropractors, we have 3 different associations, and it's cool that we have 3. Is we're trying to educate Hong Kong, and through that, people see Hong Kong as a huge reference point. Well, maybe it's changing now, but it's like we're regulated here. You can claim insurance if you need to. Just everyone comes in. A lot of people come from different countries to here to get care because the standard of healthcare is a little bit higher here from their perspective. So I think a lot of countries will try to follow suit afterwards. Especially Taiwan's growing a lot, Singapore's growing a lot as well, and even other countries. There's even a cool little project going on called Chiroasia that a Life West student is involved in. It's her little baby, and she wants to figure out and map out what's going on in Asia in chiropractic. But I think it's just going to grow, and it depends on where we get momentum, right? So I think the chiropractic story is being shared. If we can properly distinguish ourselves from like the bone setters and the physios and respectfully let everyone have their role, I think it's going to be huge. More and more people will want chiropractic. Yesterday I had, 4 new practice members signed up. Today I have 2, and I kind of want to pass them over to my other teammates. But then they just like, people just ill engaged. They're just throwing right to me because they know me, right? So that's the whole, do people know you and what you're about? If you can share that, they're just going to keep coming. And it just, that's kind of like, we got to grow the younger chiropractors to get to know, to let people know them, right? Yeah.
And I think it's important to let our audience know this too, that it doesn't matter if you're, Cantonese, Chinese, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter, what your ethnicity is. You can be someone like myself coming to Hong Kong, and I can still do well, right? Even if my language is at a 3.3, right? First of all, a lot of people speak English in Hong Kong, but it's like, don't just think that you have to be, Chinese or of Chinese descent to be able to come into anywhere in Asia. I know people in Singapore who are just rocking it, and they're guilos. They're
you can have a translator in any country, right? So
yeah, and that trust factor is also there too. A lot of times when they have a foreign doctor, right? There's always that. There can always be a higher trust factor for some reason. I don't know why, but it just tends to be that. So. Anyways, Alvin, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for what you're doing around the world, and that you left the comforts. I mean, you could have easily have gone back to Canada, stayed in the States, taken I don't want to say a path of least resistance, because it's no matter where we go, we have to make it work, right? And we have to really put ourselves in and dive into the community. But to be able to go back to Asia, go to Hong Kong and take Principal Chiropractic, I mean, I just want to thank you. It's a huge thing. The message you're doing there is big. We're educating people about, above, down, inside out. We're educating people about that, that the ability to heal comes from within, and that their ability to heal is far greater than they probably were ever led to believe as they were growing up. So thank you. And thank you for not taking the path of least resistance, going through and carving your own path out. It's a big thing.
It means a lot coming from Iran, and people love to hear it. Like, they're like, wow, this is like, no one's really told me that or cared for me in that way. And yeah, that makes sense too. So it's very, very logical in their mind. Yes.
Absolutely. So thank you, man. And I want to let our viewers know that we're going to put your website down below, and we're going to put your email down below, so that, if you want to get a hold of Alvin, just reach out to him. And I mean, you are one of the most accessible people I know. I mean, we might be on 12-hour difference or whatever we are, but it doesn't matter. You're so accessible. So reach out. And if you're thinking of Asia, and if it's not even in Dr. Alvin's area, the people in other places, right? And just reach out, because he is such a great resource, and he'll be able to help you in any way. So thank you for that too, because I know that you talk with our students and you're always there to coach and guide, right?
Just share whatever I can.
And thank you for chiropractic. Well, listen, To our viewers, thank you for listening to another episode of Life by Life West. We've got great chiropractors all over the world, just like Dr. Alvin Hsu, and pick up on that communication stuff, pick up on that woo factor. I really love that, and pick up on the passion of what it takes to be committed, to be able to deliver the goods, but also deliver the principle and hold strong, lay your groundwork, plant your seeds and toil with the soil and make things happen. And, they might not shoot up right away, but they will, as long as you have perseverance and you stick to it. So keep coming back at us with another edition. We'll have another edition of Life by Life West in a few weeks coming out. And we're so glad that you're with us. Dr. Alvin, thank you for keeping on and spreading the chiropractic principle all over Asia. We really appreciate it. You got it. And to our viewers, I'll see you next time with our next edition of Life by Life West.